The streets of Dallas at night were unforgiving. Neon signs flickered over cracked sidewalks, casting sharp shadows that danced across graffiti-stained walls. Cody, a 15-year-old boy who had been living on the streets for years, moved quietly along the alleyways, his worn sneakers barely making a sound. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, and his thin jacket did little to protect him from the January chill, but his eyes remained alert. He knew every corner, every shortcut, every shadow where trouble could hide. Tonight, trouble was coming, and Cody could feel it before he even saw it. Ahead, near a dimly lit convenience store, a girl struggled against a man who gripped her arm tightly. Her golden hair was tangled, and tears streaked her dirty cheeks. "Let go of me," she screamed, panic lacing her voice. Cody's heart pounded. He didn't know her, but something inside him refused to look away. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward them, his small frame darting between cars and trash bins. "Hey, let her go," Cody shouted, his voice trembling but loud enough to cut through the night's noises. The man froze, his grip loosening for a brief moment. The girl's eyes widened in surprise, hope flashing briefly across her tear-streaked face. Cody lunged forward and grabbed her hand, pulling her behind a rusty dumpster. They huddled together, her small body trembling against his chest. Cody could feel her heartbeat racing. "Are you okay?" he asked, trying to sound braver than he felt. Who are you?" she whispered, her voice shaky. "No time to explain," Cody replied, scanning the street. "We need to get out of here." The man approached, his shadow stretching across the cracked asphalt, and Cody realized the danger was far from over. He was just a scrawny kid, not a fighter, but he couldn't let her be taken. Summoning every ounce of courage, he stepped in front of her. "I said, let her go," he repeated, louder this time. The man stopped. For a moment, the night was still. Then, as if deciding Cody wasn't worth the trouble, he shoved a chain against the ground and vanished into the darkness, leaving only the echo of his heavy boots. Cody exhaled, relief washing over him, though he didn't lower his guard. The girl wiped her tears and looked at him with wide, grateful eyes. "Thank you. I didn't think anyone would help me," she said softly. Cody smiled faintly, though his hands still shook. "You'd do the same for me," he replied. "Come on, we need to find somewhere safe." As they disappeared into the maze of alleyways, neither of them realized that their lives had just changed forever. Cody's small act of courage had already set events in motion, events that would bring a storm of 97 motorcycles roaring down the streets, testing everything he thought he knew about bravery, loyalty, and survival. But for now, in the cold, dark city, a boy and a girl moved quietly, clinging to hope, daring to believe they might make it through the night. Cody and the girl didn't pause once they were out of sight of the street. Their breaths came in ragged gasps, fogging in the cold Dallas night air. The girl, whose name Cody learned was Emily, clutched his hand tightly, as if letting go meant the danger would return instantly. "Do you think they'll come back?" she whispered, voice trembling. Cody didn't answer immediately. He scanned the streets, his sharp eyes catching every shadow, every flicker of movement. He had learned long ago that fear could freeze a person, but he had to stay alert, for both of them. A distant, low rumble started to fill the night air. At first, Cody thought it was a truck, but the growl grew louder, heavier, more threatening. "Emily, we need to move. Now," he said, his pulse quickening. The rumble wasn't a single vehicle, it was a pack. 97 motorcycles, roaring like a mechanical hurricane, were approaching fast. The Hells Angels, known for their ruthless reputation, had been alerted to Emily's disappearance. Cody's stomach twisted. The numbers alone would make most people run, but he refused. He grabbed Emily and led her through a series of narrow alleyways, ducking behind dumpsters, hopping fences, and slipping through hidden gaps in chain-link walls. Every turn was calculated, every shadow a potential trap. Her small hands clung to his, and he felt her trembling. "Cody, I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely audible over the engines. "I know," he replied, trying to sound calm. "But we can't let them catch us. Just keep running and trust me." The roar of motorcycles grew louder, the smell of gasoline and burning rubber filling the air. Cody used every trick he had learned surviving on the streets. Ducking behind parked cars, using the dark to hide, doubling back to confuse pursuers. He could hear the shouting of bikers ahead, but they hadn't seen him yet. His heart raced with a mix of fear and adrenaline. At one point, they came to a dead-end alley, the sound of approaching engines deafening. Cody's mind raced. He spotted a fire escape ladder on the side of a building. "Up there!" he shouted, helping Emily climb the rusted metal stairs. They clung to the ladder as the motorcycles screamed past below, the bikers, eyes scanning the streets. For a moment, Cody held his breath, praying they wouldn't look up. The bikers continued down the street, their engines fading slowly into the distance. Cody let out a shaky sigh, supporting Emily as she slid down the other side of the fire escape onto a quiet street. Neither spoke for several long minutes, the adrenaline leaving them exhausted but alive. Cody looked at Emily, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and fear. "You saved me," she said softly. "I don't know how to thank you." He shook his head. "You don't have to. Bravery isn't about size or strength. It's about standing up when it matters." For a moment, the city seemed almost calm again. But both knew that night had changed everything. The storm of 97 motorcycles might have passed, but the ripple of their courage would continue, testing their hearts, their wits, and their willingness to fight for each other in a world that was rarely kind. Cody and Emily finally found a temporary refuge in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Dallas. The structure was old, with broken windows and graffiti-strewn walls, but it offered shelter from the night and the roar of motorcycles that still echoed faintly in the distance. Emily sank to the dusty floor, her knees pulled to her chest. "I can't believe we actually got away," she whispered. Cody leaned against a cracked wall, scanning the surrounding streets through the shattered windows. Even now, he knew the danger wasn't completely gone. "We need a plan," he said, his voice low but steady. "They're not just going to forget this. 97 bikers don't just ride away for nothing." Emily nodded, wiping her tears. She shivered, both from the cold and the lingering fear. Cody reached into his pocket, pulling out a small flashlight. Its dim beam cut through the darkness as he inspected the warehouse. They needed an exit strategy, a way to stay hidden if the bikers returned. Suddenly, the faint sound of engines rumbled again. Cody froze. "They're back," he muttered, his heart hammering. Emily grabbed his sleeve. "What do we do?" she asked, panic rising. Cody thought fast. They couldn't stay on the streets, but the warehouse had multiple floors, hidden rooms, and a rooftop exit. If they could climb to the roof and escape into the back alleys behind the building, they might have a chance. He led Emily through a narrow hallway, careful to avoid loose floorboards that creaked underfoot. Their footsteps echoed softly, but it was nothing compared to the thunder outside. From a broken ladder, Cody helped Emily up to the roof. The wind whipped their faces as they crouched behind an old ventilation unit, looking down at the street. The bikers were circling, scanning the area, shouting orders. Cody's stomach twisted with tension, but he forced himself to stay calm. Every second counted. "You think we can really lose them?" Emily whispered, clutching his arm. "We have to try," Cody replied. He spotted a nearby fire escape leading to an adjacent alley that offered multiple hiding spots. "We wait for the right moment, then run," he explained. Minutes stretched into an eternity as the bikers searched below, their headlights cutting through the darkness like blades. Finally, Cody saw an opening. A biker had turned the wrong way, leaving the path below clear. "Now," he hissed. They slid down the fire escape and dashed into the alley. Trash bins and abandoned cars became their cover as they weaved through the narrow streets. Cody's mind raced, calculating every turn, every shadow. Emily's small hand held tightly to his, giving him strength. The roar of engines faded behind them. They were still alive. At last, they slowed in a quiet residential street, hearts pounding, lungs burning. Emily collapsed onto the curb, gasping. Cody sat beside her, exhausted but relieved. "We did it. For now," he said, voice hoarse. Emily looked at him with awe, realizing that a boy who had once been invisible on the streets had just outsmarted a gang of the most feared bikers in America. They didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but one thing was certain. Courage could come from the smallest person, and sometimes, survival depended on daring to stand when fear seemed overwhelming. Tonight, they had won a battle, but the war was far from over.